The Earth is swamped in plastic and will remain so for generations to come.
Plastic waste.
Plastic waste.
Plastic nightmare.
Plastic waste.
Plastic waste.
Plastic pollution.
Plastic waste.
Plastic pollution.
Plastic pollution.
Plastic.
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 Plastic. Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic. Plastic. Plastic. Plastic. Plastic. Plastic.
Well, we did it. We created a material so convenient that it itself has become an inconvenience. Now the world is in a frenzy as we scramble to find ways to eradicate this problem. Here in Cornwall, there's a movement happening, one that will hopefully not only see the end to plastic pollution, but all pollution. This is Coalesce.
I grew up in this little corner of southeast Cornwall, the Rhone Peninsula, and like a lot of people, at 18 I went away to uni and I went to live in London and abroad and did all sorts of things. And I didn't move back here until my early 40s. I came back with my kids, and I was really shocked at how much of a change I saw on the beaches around here. I'd spent so much time on the beach when I was a child, but when I came back I just really noticed so much plastic, so many pieces of microplastics, and I thought somebody is obviously doing something about this. And I asked around and I realised that there wasn't really anyone doing anything. So with a group of friends decided to set up this group, Rhone Peninsula Beach Care, 5 years ago now. And since then we've been running monthly beach cleans all along Whitsand Bay. We've been removing hundreds and hundreds of sacks of plastic from the beaches every year. And I think it's made a real difference, and it's really brought the community together as well. Because I think, I always think that we live in a world now with so many really big, intractable environmental problems that we can't do much about as individuals. But we all love our local beach, we all love our local community, and everybody just wants to get out there and help. So we have sometimes up to 100 people coming out on beach cleans, and so it's great on a sort of social and community level as well as an environmental one. Rob Arnold, one of our volunteers, who is a genius inventor, has made this crazy machine from bits and pieces that he's found and been lent by local companies. It's a kind of flotation tank with meshes that can separate out the large bits of organic matter. And the sand hoppers, which need to remain on the beach, obviously sink to the bottom, and you get most of the plastics and the small bits of organic debris floating on the top, and they can be caught in a mesh and then taken away to be separated.
We will separate this further and get rid of some of these bigger pieces of organic material, wood, and leave those behind. But you know, this is a big problem. All this microplastic, and the bees that you see are nurdles. And these are particularly bad because they resemble fish eggs, and fish eggs are popular food for bigger fish and seabirds, so they're just filling themselves up with this plastic.
You start to realise that it's been coming from a wide range of sources, you know, out of the sewage system, from fishing, from consumer plastic, all sorts of things. You know, you just feel like you've got to do something, because this is a material that comes from all of us. We're all using it all the time, every day, without any desire to cause any harm, and yet there it is, causing enormous harm in the environment. So I suppose it's just our way of giving something back and trying to minimise the impact that we're having as a species through the use and poor disposal of plastic.
So I joined Surfers Against Sewage in the mid-90s. I enjoyed going surfing, and SAS was they were the campaigning organisation that were focused predominantly at that time on reducing sewage and reducing effluent in the water. And so in terms of my connection with them at that point in time, it certainly wasn't about ocean plastics, but reducing litter on the beach. When we were going in the water, we were noticing when we got out of the beach there's more and more litter that's left behind. And this was bigger pieces of litter, not the little tiny pieces that we see today. So in terms of my raising awareness, it was, I guess, over the last few years, as plastic has become the new version of sewage in our water. Plastic is something that we really don't want to be in our water systems. I decided just to take a bit more ownership of doing something about that.
So what are the hazards?
Hazardous substances.
Hazardous substances. So we have things like palm oil wash up on the beach, or containers with chemicals in them. So again, they're hazardous to you, they're hazardous to the ocean, and we do want to get rid of them. We want to get rid of them safely. Right. So part of the beach that might look quite clean, when you start to look along the strand lines where the waves have been, sometimes you actually get whole threads of little microplastics. That is as valuable to pick that up as it is to come in with one big piece. So we're not looking for you to have the biggest bag in the world.
I've been leading beach cleans here, I think, for 4 to 5 years. The big spring beach clean and the big autumn beach clean, and getting involved in those. We've been doing litter picks. But in terms of actually actively leading it for my community, that's been within the last year, taking more of a leadership role in terms of this space and getting people encouraged to take more ownership of their own actions when it comes to plastics at source. We could all get overwhelmed with quite how big the challenge is. So I think starting with what can you as an individual do gives people something tangible for them to grasp hold of, that they can take action, and that every single action that we take matters.
I'm the Welfare Development and Field Support Officer at British Divers Marine Life Rescue, which is a national charity which trains volunteers around the country to respond to marine mammals that may need our help, whether they're stranded on the shore, sick, injured, ill, that sort of thing. We deal with a lot of entangled animals these days as well. So our volunteers are out there ready to respond to any calls that come into our hotline at the head office and ready to go out and deal with these incidents, often with help from people such as the Coast Guard, RNLI and so on. Originally I'm from Birmingham, so never had any real contact with the coast before, so after moving down here in 2001, this is really when I started to get interested in marine conservation, marine biology and everything. I went on to Plymouth University and studied marine biology there, for example. And then after that, after I graduated, started working at the Cornish Seal Sanctuary, and over time got involved in more and more things, such as the Cornwall Seal Group Research Trust and the Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Strandings Network and a few other things as well. So that's where it all sort of came from, really, and now I work for BDO Malar and help take what I've learned here locally to a more national level.
Usually the sanctuary, we're like deciding for ages, and we've got like a short list of themes, and then we get the first pup in, and it's like, quick, just point at one and come up with a random name.
You're more diplomatic than us. We did another one, but he wasn't like true shouting.
Over the last few years, we're definitely seeing an increase in the number of entangled animals in marine litter that we're dealing with now, which can be really serious for them. It's a really serious welfare issue. It prevents them from feeding, it prevents them from being able to move properly. It's incredibly painful for them as well, especially for young seal pups. If they get trapped at an early age and can't get the net off of them, then they just grow into it. As they increase in size, it just cuts into them, as of course the net doesn't grow with them. Got it. Go here, see. Okay. See it a bit better than I. It's going to be a bit stinky.
I've been running a community group for the last 4 years doing underwater litter retrievals, and we've scoped out over the past couple of years to start lifting some of the bigger stuff as well. So we're looking at the sort of nets and the traps and the pots and those kind of things. Primarily we're a diving group, but we've also started going on to sort of beach cleans and awareness events. And the latest thing has been we've started to look into ways of recycling some of the plastics we find, because there's quite a lot of valuable materials here, resource-wise, which is currently going unutilised. It's generally going to landfill. One of the most interesting finds is actually one of the most common finds we found as well, actually, which is this piece of net. Nothing that amazing about it, in the fact it's just a very standard piece of net. But what's interesting is this went down with the wreck of the Conqueror, which hit the rocks just outside of at Mousehole, just down at Penzance. Hit the rocks in 1977. This net was on it at the time. It went down with the wreck. We retrieved it last year, so it had been in the water for 40 years. And as you can see, the net itself, except for where it's been abraded on the rest of the wreck, the net is actually perfectly structurally sound. This is still perfectly capable of entangling animals, and this wreck whilst was out there, we had quite a few seals out there swimming around. I've had a sample of this net sent away and to be tested with plastics, and they've confirmed that actually this net, even though it's been in the marine environment for 40 years, is still 100% recyclable. The structural integrity is still there. It's been UV faded a little bit, it's lost some of the colour, but actually, as a recycler goes, this is 40 years in the marine environment, in a very harsh environment, and it's still 100% sound. I'm not an engineer, but I have been working with engineering companies over the last couple of years to develop a way of recycling this waste back into product. And after a couple of years, this January, we managed to produce our first ocean plastic recycled kayak. And we've now got 4. We're in the process of producing another 2, and that will be all the material that I've processed up to that point. And that first batch of kayaks is going to be used for heading up the campaign, so getting other people interested in getting out and using whatever they can to start recycling and to start getting the rubbish away as well from those inaccessible coves and beaches.
I run a company called Otter Surfboards, where we design and make wooden surfboards, and we teach people how to make surfboards for themselves as well. Or you have a soft or rounded rail, but we've got to go from one to the other, okay? And the way we do that is we'll end up with a tucked under hard rail, so you end up with this corner slowly drifts in until you're completely rounded. I, as a surfer, was getting pretty fed up with boards that didn't last very long. The typical kind of foam board just wasn't lasting more than a couple of years. So I thought, I know that I can source my wood sustainably, and I love making things out of wood, so why not have a go at making a wooden surfboard? And that's where the idea was born, and then it was probably 3 or 4 years later, so this is 2011, 2012, that we started the courses, because I had customers come in and say that they loved what I did, but they wanted to get hands-on. And I think it blew me away how much it can impact people, really, having their own involvement in making and kind of learning new skills and pushing themselves out of their comfort zone and reconnecting with their hands, to make me want to make that the focus of the business. Yeah, to see what it gave other people was quite exceptional. By involving people in the making of them, they want them to last longer, so they look after them more, they take more care of them, which is a huge part when you think about kind of the culture of today, of like the throwaway culture. It's because people don't see the value in the objects they have, so by kind of instilling that thought into people, it makes them look after them.
There's a lot of discussion happening now about what the best way forward is. We know how bad plastic pollution is, and we know that if we don't change our actions fast, then the problem will only get worse. So for me, the most important thing is to pass on this knowledge, to ensure that in the future, the problem gets better, not worse.
I feel really guilty because the plastic problem has happened on my watch in my lifetime. I think when we were at school, and I remember going to the shops with my mum, and you just had a basket, literally a wicker basket, and you went to the shops and you just put your shopping in, and it didn't come, you know, the vegetables didn't even have a paper bag sometimes, you just put them in your bag. And very slowly as we were growing up, the plastics started being introduced in the supermarkets and the shops and straws, but nobody actually told us about the plastics. No one informed us of the dangers. If someone had said when I was, 8, 9, 10, that the straw that you now get in your little drink will last longer than you will, that it will still be in the environment long after you're gone, I know I'd have been horrified. I've always, we spent a lot of time outdoors as a family and as children, and I do now. I don't like being indoors. I like being outdoors, and I like swimming, and I like being in the environment, and I care very deeply about animals, marine animals and terrestrial animals. And I wish I'd known, I wish someone had come into our school and told my family about the dangers of the plastics that were, coming into our lives. Here in Cornwall, we're really lucky. We've got a group of dedicated volunteers who, free of charge, in their own time, will go into schools or community groups or scout packs or brownies and rainbows and actually do some education work with the young people.
Is seawater very, very salty, 100%, 90% salty? Is it sort of medium salty, 50%, half and half? Or is it just a little bit salty? Who thinks it's very salty, like 90, way at this end of the scale? Nobody? Who thinks it's about half and half, 50-50? Yeah? Okay, and who thinks it's just a little bit salty, just a teeny bit salty? What's your name? Eleanor. Eleanor's right. So I need to make, because we're going to do an experiment in a little while, I need to make this water about 3% salt. Okay, and if you give it a stir, that'll help it dissolve. And we're making our own saline solution. Saline is a word for salt. So we're making our own salty solution. Thank you very much, Alex. Do you want to try the little life jackets?
See if they actually go.
Oh, see, that's very. Shall we try a Harry Potter broomstick? He hasn't done one. Go on, try a Harry Potter broomstick. Yeah, let me hold this up so everybody can see. Right. So, we've got some plastic that ends up on the seabed and some that would float just under the surface.
I think it has to be, I don't think you can go into a classroom or work with children and wave a big stick and tell them not to do things like don't throw litter and don't buy straws. You've got to come at it in a slightly different way, and a positive and a fun way, and to engage. So we take lots of stuff with us, lots of plastic artefacts that we found on beaches, some interesting things from the container spills. We try and show them the scale of the problem by showing them the jars full of lighters. We've got jars full of fireworks that we found on beaches, the plastic innards for fireworks, and cotton bud sticks and bottle tops. So I think actually physically having the artefacts in front of them and seeing the scale makes a difference. We also, take PowerPoints and we do visual displays. And we talk to the children about, in an open questioning type way, about what they think. How is this plastic going to impact on wildlife, to the environment? What damage can it do? And slowly, we build up that knowledge base. We get the children to explore those issues.
I worked for Cornwall Wildlife Trust, and they had a project that was called the Otter Project, which was about bringing together local marine groups around the coast and expanding on it. So what's happened is there was still a few gaps within Cornwall where there wasn't these voluntary marine conservation groups. So it's expanded on that project, so looking at setting up local community groups in the different areas. So we're looking at Bude, Penzance, St Austell, St Ives and Falmouth to expand on that project, but then also looking at that missing link of young people, because you tend to find that the groups tend to be a little bit older and there's not that interest within the sort of 11 to 24-year-olds, which is where I step in. So they're my target age group of trying to get more involved in the marine environment. What problems the marine species face?
We're gonna have to win it.
Huh?
We're gonna have to drive hunting.
People hunting, yeah. So hunting.
Or the plastic that they eat.
Killing. So plastic. Anything else?
Isn't there oil spills and all that?
Oil.
Yeah, so like beds and stuff.
Boats. Did you say? Boats. Obviously, as they get older, we need other people to be coming through that is actually going to look after the environment, because as in conservation in general, there's not enough people that are sort of getting paid positions to actually take care of the environment. So it relies really heavily on volunteers. So we need those young people to sort of take up where other people have left off, and also add their own ideas, get a bit of fresh blood into it, a bit of fresh eyes, because sometimes I think people get stuck in a rut. So you want those young people coming through with some passion. And also, it's their future. So it's their planet, so they need to sort of start taking care of it. But it's amazing, because I think a lot of the young people that you work with, they are actually they know a lot of stuff about plastics, about pollution. And that seems to happen quite naturally, but it's nice to get them to do sort of activity days and stuff to show them more of the impact rather than just talking about it in a classroom. Now, I think you've picked up some seaweed there, haven't you?
Yes, it's not rubbish.
It's not rubbish. We can leave seaweed on the beach. There is cases where the seaweed is quite encrusted with rope and you do end up just having to take the whole thing. But seaweed, why can we leave seaweed on the beach? Why is seaweed good?
It's habitat. Because it's normal on the beach.
Yeah, normal on the beach, it's habitat. And birds forage in it, animals forage in it. There's lovely little creatures that live in it.
Birds, so some birds make their nests in it?
With it, yeah, exactly. It's really, really useful stuff. I've got a piece here that is just covered in rope, so I wouldn't be able to take that apart, but generally speaking, when we do a beach clean, we try and leave as much as the seaweed as we possibly can do. So it really varies what I offer and what we can do depending on where we are and what the local marine groups want as well. Like we try and, obviously we work together with them to put on different events to suit that location. And I try and get some local young people involved.
Camp Cornwall was set up to reconnect and engage children with the natural environment and inspire them to live more sustainably.
Okay, now really tell me about Camp Cornwall.
You would trip over the rope. Nice one, Riley.
It's never been really good then. Well, we have.
I guess I just needed to leave the city and I wanted to do something that was going to be worthwhile and make a difference. And working with children in an outdoor setting is just one of the most rewarding things. I feel like it's an honour to be the conduit to children's learning and experience. And I guess when I was younger, I went to summer camp and I have some amazing memories from that time. And we made it our mission to try and create some amazing memories for children and to arm them with the knowledge and the confidence to be real sort of ambassadors for change. And that's really why we set up our project.
So if you were to take all of the solar cells off our solar panels and pile them all up, they'd make something about the size of your head. So something about the size of your head with the power of the sun can allow us all to live here. Who thinks that's amazing? It's pretty amazing. So we're going to get wood for our campfires and to make our water hot. It's called carbon dioxide. And so is too much carbon dioxide good or bad for our planet?
Bad.
Really bad. And we've built this place, Camp Cornwall, to try and show you how you can live a comfortable life without giving off loads of carbon dioxide all the time, because that makes our planet too hot, doesn't it?
Of the 1,000 children that come to camp each summer, about 900 of those are actually from Cornwall. And despite living in this incredible environment, some children have never actually been to the beach or been to a woodland. So for many, this is a time of firsts. Their first time sleeping outdoors under canvas, their first time walking in a woodland perhaps, their first time seeing a rabbit in the wild. So all these experiences, all these firsts are really important in understanding the natural environment.
Secret passageway. Watch out, there is still worms on this.
We're all going to be the weather.
We are the weather.
You know how before it rains you get wind? Then those first pitter-patters of the raindrops.
It's raining, it's pouring.
Then clap your hands, stomp your feet, and rain is
They must do a lot of growing up in the time that they're here. And I think that's a really positive thing for them to be able to take away during that growing up period of time, the environmental message, and they get it. And it's just great to be the part of what, how they're experiencing it. It's a bit like being a curator of experience for the children, and because the environment and sustainability is what underpins everything that they do, that's our responsibility to make sure that we're curating the right kind of experience for them, something that's going to inspire them and something that's going to blow them away and make them feel empowered. That's what I love most about what we do. Delivering wild experiences for them.
Looking out over this incredible place we live in, it's not hard to see why so many people strive to protect it. We were once all a part of the problem, but now together, we can be a part of the solution.
I've stood on Cape Cornwall in the sun's evening glow, on June Hill at Newlyn, watch the fishing fleets go, watch the sheep wheels at Givor as they spun around, and heard the men singing as they go underground. Me from this land until the Lord calls me to sit at his hand, for this is my Eden, and I'm not alone, for this is my call. Childish footsteps in the soft cement sand. I've chased the mates there, all giggly and tan. I've stood on a cliff top in a westerly heard the waves thunder on the rocks far below, and no one will ever move me from this land until and gaze at the sillies in blue far away. For this is my Cornwall, and I'll tell you why. Because I was born here, and here I shall die, and no one will ever move me from this land until